Please remember, we want to find out an expression of the wave number of a photon that is emitted whenever an electron makes a transition from orbit of quantum number n2 to a lower energy orbit of quantum number n1. Okay, n2 is greater than n1. So if n2 is greater than n1, the energy of the electron in the quantum number state n2, En2, is more than the energy En1 in the lower energy orbit. Okay, so according to Bohr postulate, the third postulate, so electron would emit energy or atom would emit energy only when electron makes a transition from higher energy orbit to lower energy orbit. So therefore, electron has to make a transition from energy En2 to En1. So definitely N2 must be greater than N1. Okay. So according to Bohr's frequency condition, energy of the photon hν must be equal to En2 minus En1. Okay. So I have substituted the expression for energy En1 and En2. Expression same ಬರುತ್ತೆ ಎರಡಕ್ಕೂನು. ಆದರೆ En2 ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪ್ರೆಷನ್ ಒಳಗಡೆ 1/n2 ಸ್ಕ್ವೇರ್ ಅಂತ ಬರುತ್ತೆ. En1 ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪ್ರೆಷನ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ 1/n1 ಸ್ಕ್ವೇರ್ ಅಂತ ಬರುತ್ತೆ. ಜೊತೆಗೆ ಎನರ್ಜಿ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪ್ರೆಷನ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನೆಗೆಟಿವ್ ಸೈನ್ ಇದೆ. En2 minus En1 ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ನೆಗೆಟಿವ್ ಸೈನ್ ಸೇರ್ಕೊಂಡು ಓವರ್ ಆಲ್ ಆಗಿ ಸೊ ದ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪ್ರೆಷನ್ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಚೇಂಜ್ ಮಾಡಿಲ್ಲ ಹಾಗೆ ಇದೆ. ಸೊ ಯು ಆರ್ ಗೋಯಿಂಗ್ ಟು ಗೆಟ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪ್ರೆಷನ್ ಫಾರ್ ಎನರ್ಜಿ ಆಸ್ hν is equal to me⁴ z square divided by 8 epsilon naught square h cube c into 1/n1 square minus 1/n2 square. Okay, left side is not nu bar is equal to 1 by lambda, it is hν still. Okay, ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಚೇಂಜ್ ಮಾಡಿಲ್ಲ, ಅದರಲ್ಲಿ ಬೇರೆ ಶೀಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಚೇಂಜ್ ಮಾಡಿದೆ, ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಚೇಂಜ್ ಮಾಡಿಲ್ಲ, no problem. So rather than expressing the expression in terms of frequency, we always express the expression in terms of wave number. Okay, so frequency nu is given by c by lambda. So c is ಹಾಗೆ ಬರ್ಕೊಂಡಿದೀವಿ, 1 by lambda is nothing but nu bar, and this nu bar 1 by lambda is what we call it as wave number of the photon. Okay, so therefore if we substitute in terms of wave number, so hν becomes equal to hsc nu bar ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. So that is equal to me⁴ z square divided by 8 epsilon naught square h square into 1/n1 square minus 1/n2 square. Okay na, hc left side ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇರೋದನ್ನ ರೈಟ್ ಸೈಡ್ ಗೆ ಕಳಿಸ್ತೀನಿ. ಕಳಿಸಿದ್ರೆ nu bar is equal to 1 by lambda, nu bar is same as 1 by lambda is equal to me⁴ z square divided by 8 epsilon naught square. ಇಲ್ಲೊಂದು h ಇದೆ, ಈ h ಸ್ಕ್ವೇರ್ ಜೊತೆ ಸೇರ್ಕೊಂಡು h ಕ್ಯೂಬ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಲೆಫ್ಟ್ ಸೈಡ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ c ಇದೆ, ಆ c ರೈಟ್ ಸೈಡ್ ಗೆ ಬಂದ್ರೆ ಮತ್ತೆ c ಆಗುತ್ತೆ ಕೆಳಗಡೆ. ಓಕೆ, ಸೊ therefore ಡಿನಾಮಿನೇಟರ್ ನಲ್ಲಿ 8 epsilon naught square h cube c ಅಂತ ಬರುತ್ತೆ into 1/n1 square minus 1/n2 square. Okay, now for hydrogen atom we have z is equal to 1. Okay, as I have told, we always go for the special case of hydrogen atom. So for hydrogen atom z is equal to 1 ಅಂತ ಹಾಕಬಹುದು. ಹಾಗಾಗಿ ಇಲ್ಲಿ z square ಅಂತ ಟರ್ಮ್ ಇದೆ equation 14 ಅಲ್ಲಿ, ಅದು ಹೊರಟೋಗುತ್ತೆ, ಅದು 1 ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. So therefore wave number nu bar is equal to reciprocal of the wavelength 1 by lambda, and that is equal to me⁴ divided by 8 epsilon naught square h cube c into 1/n1 square minus 1/n2 square. Okay, this is equation 15. This is what the expression for the wave number. But these terms, these many number of terms, me⁴ divided by 8 epsilon naught square h cube into c ideyala, these are all constants. So therefore when we substitute all the constant, we end up with other constant. That constant we write it as r subscript h ಅಂತ ಬರೀತೀವಿ. R is for Rydberg's constant, H is for hydrogen atom. This RH, which is equal to me⁴ divided by 8 epsilon naught square h cube c antidiyala, this is the value of Rydberg's constant for only hydrogen atom, because we have substituted z is equal to 1. So therefore ಇಷ್ಟುದ್ದ ಬರ್ಕೊಳ್ಳೋ ಬದಲು me⁴ 8 epsilon naught h c ಎಲ್ಲ ಬರ್ಕೊಳ್ಳೋ ಬದಲು RH ಅಂತ ಬರ್ಕೋಬಹುದು. So nu bar becomes equal to 1 by lambda, that is equal to RH into 1/n1 square minus 1/n2 square. This is called equation 16, and this equation 16 is what we call it as Balmer's formula. Okay, so please try to remember, this is this formula actually resembles Balmer's formula. So a person called Balmer already established this relation based on the experimental results of hydrogen spectrum. Hydrogen spectrum ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾವ ಸ್ಪೆಕ್ಟ್ರಲ್ ಲೈನ್ಸ್ ಬರುತ್ತೋ ಅದರದೆಲ್ಲ ವೇವ್ ನಂಬರ್ ವೇವ್ ಲೆಂತ್ ಅನ್ನ ಮೆಜರ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಈ ತರ ಫಾರ್ಮುಲಾ 1 by lambda is equal to RH into 1/n1 square minus 1/n2 square ಅನ್ನೋ ಫಾರ್ಮುಲಾನು ಸೊ ನಾವು ಬೋರ್ಸ್ ಥಿಯರಿಯಿಂದ ಡಿರೈವ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ವಲ್ಲ, ಅದಕ್ಕಿಂತ ತುಂಬಾ ವರ್ಷಗಳ ಹಿಂದೆನೆ ಅವನು ಈ ಈಕ್ವೇಷನ್ ಸೆಟ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದ. ಸೊ ದಟ್ಸ್ ವೈ ದಿಸ್ ಈಕ್ವೇಷನ್ 16 is what we call it as Balmer's formula. Okay na, so the thing is, so the value of RH agla ಹೇಳಿದೆ, if you substitute all the values me epsilon naught h c ಎಲ್ಲ substitute ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ RH value ಸಿಗುತ್ತೆ. The value of RH comes out to be Rydberg's constant for hydrogen atom comes out to be 1.091 into 10 to the power of 7 per meter. ಇಷ್ಟು ಬರುತ್ತೆ. Okay, and the thing is, this calculated value of Rydberg's constant we have calculated. So using this expression RH is equal to m e power 4 divided by 8 epsilon square h cube c, we have calculated the value of Rydberg constant per hydrogen atom on the basis of Bohr's theory. So that this calculated value is 1.09 into 10 to the power of 7 so per meter. ಇದನ್ನ ಕ್ಯಾಲ್ಕುಲೇಷನ್ ಮಾಡೋದಕ್ಕಿಂತ ಮುಂಚೆನೆ ಬಾಮರ್ಸ್ ಫಾರ್ಮುಲಾ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ನಲ್ಲ, ಬಾಮರ್ ಅನ್ನೋನೇ ಕೂಡ ಈ RH ವ್ಯಾಲ್ಯೂನ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪೆರಿಮೆಂಟಲ್ ಆಗಿ ಮೆಷರ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದ, ಕ್ಯಾಲ್ಕುಲೇಟ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದ. ಓಕೆ, ಆ ಕ್ಯಾಲ್ಕುಲೇಟೆಡ್ ವ್ಯಾಲ್ಯೂ ಸೊ ಈ ಬೋರ್ಸ್ ಥಿಯರಿಯಿಂದ ಇವಾಗ ನಾವು ಕ್ಯಾಲ್ಕುಲೇಟ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ 1.09 into 10 to the power of 7 per meter ಅಂತಿದೆಯಲ್ಲ, ಆ ವ್ಯಾಲ್ಯೂ 2 ಹತ್ತತ್ರ ಮ್ಯಾಚ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ದ ಥಿಂಗ್ ಈಸ್, so the calculated value of Rydberg constant on the basis of Bohr's theory agrees very well with the experimental value of Rydberg constant. So this matching of Rydberg's constant, so based on the basis of Bohr's theory, so this matching, the matching of this particular value with the experimental value is actually one of the successfulness or the merits of your Bohr's theory. ನಮ್ಮ ಬೋರ್ಸ್ ಥಿಯರಿ ಹೈಡ್ರೋಜನ್ ಆಟಮ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ತುಂಬಾ ನೀಟಾಗಿ ಕೆಲಸ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದೆ, ತುಂಬಾ ನೀಟಾಗಿ ರಿಸಲ್ಟ್ ಕೊಡುತ್ತೆ ಅನ್ನೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಇದು ಒಂದು ಪ್ರೂಫ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ, ಒಂದು ಸಪೋರ್ಟ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಯಾಕೆ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ರಿಡ್ಬರ್ಗ್ ಕಾನ್ಸ್ಟೆಂಟ್ ಅನ್ನ ನಾವು ಬೋರ್ಸ್ ಥಿಯರಿಯಿಂದ ಕ್ಯಾಲ್ಕುಲೇಷನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಲ್ಲ, ಆ ಬೋರ್ಸ್ ಥಿಯರಿಯಿಂದ ಕ್ಯಾಲ್ಕುಲೇಟ್ ಮಾಡಿರೋ ವ್ಯಾಲ್ಯೂ ಸೊ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪೆರಿಮೆಂಟಲ್ ಆಗಿ ಏನ್ ಮೆಷರ್ ಮಾಡಿವೋ ಅದ್ರ ವ್ಯಾಲ್ಯೂ ಜೊತೆ ತುಂಬಾ ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿ ಮ್ಯಾಚ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ therefore this actually becomes one of the so merit or support of Bohr's theory. Okay, on the basis of our Rydberg's formula or Balmer's formula, RH 1 by lambda is equal to RH into 1 by n1 square minus 1 by n2 square. So we shall try to understand what are the different spectral series of hydrogen atom. Okay, this also it is a very well known fact. This also we have studied. You people have studied, but no problem. For the sake of continuity, completeness, we shall also try to understand about so the different spectral series of hydrogen atom. You already know there are several spectral series in the case of hydrogen atom. So whatever the spectral series of hydrogen atom that we get experimentally, so the same thing is also predicted by our Balmer formula, Balmer's formula, correct? Which is actually we have derived on the basis of Bohr's theory. Okay, so here this is what your Balmer's formula ille bardide nodi. 1 by complete ag bardilla nanu, but 1 by lambda is equal to RH into 1 by n1 square minus 1 by n2 square. What I have done is here I have substituted the value of n1 as 1. n1 ಗೆ 1 ಅಂತ ಸಬ್ಸ್ಟಿಟ್ಯೂಟ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದೀನಿ, ಅಂಡ್ n2 ಅಂತಿದೆಯಲ್ಲ, n2 ಜಾಗದಲ್ಲಿ n ಅಂತ ಬರ್ಕೊಂಡಿದ್ದೀನಿ. ಆ n ಗೆ ನಾನು I am going to give the values of 2, 3, 4 etc. etc. Okay, that means n1 is equal to 1 and n2 can take the value of 2, 3, 4 means electron can make a transition from n2 to 1, or electron can make a transition from 3 to 1. Our electron can make a transition from 4 to 1. Our electron can make a transition from 5 to 1. That means here in this first case, we are assuming that electron can make a transition from any other higher energy orbit to n is equal to 1. n1 is equal to 1. n1 is equal to 1 means the ground state or the least energy state of hydrogen atom. So therefore, if that is the case, then so transition of the electron from higher energy orbits to the least energy orbit n1 is equal to 1 actually gives a series, and that series is what we call it as Lyman series. And all the spectral lines belonging to the Lyman series, they actually belong to ultraviolet region of the so electromagnetic spectrum. Okay, so therefore our Balmer's formula says that in the formula 1 by lambda is equal to RH into 1 by n1 square minus 1 by n2 square. If we fix the value of n1 as 1, and if we keep on giving the value of n2 as 2, 3, 4 etc., then it is possible to find out the wavelength or wave number, frequency, whatever it is. Yenadru sari calculate ಮಾಡಬಹುದು. Okay, of so different members of the first series of hydrogen atom, and that the first series of hydrogen atom is what we call it as Balmer's formula. Okay, for example, if electron making transition from 2 to 1 state 2 to 1, it is first member of Balmer series. Sorry, Lyman series, not Balmer series. Actually, sorry, Lyman series. If electron is making a transition from 3 to 1, second member of Lyman series. If electron is making a transition from 4 to 1, so the third member of Lyman series, and so on. And similarly, if an electron makes a transition from infinity to 1, n2 2, 3, 4 ಅಂತ infinity ತನಕ ಬರ್ಕೋಬಹುದು. ಹಾಗಾಗಿ n2 is equal to infinity ಇಂದ n1 is equal to 1 transition ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ that actually becomes the last member of the Lyman series. The last member of the Lyman series is what we call it as series limit of Lyman series. Okay na? And the same formula 1 by lambda is equal to RH into 1 by n1 square minus n2 square can also be used to generate so spectral series of other spectral series of hydrogen atom. For example, if I fix n1 is equal to 2 and n2 is equal to 3, 4, 5, etc., so then it is possible to calculate the wavelengths of the second series. The second series of hydrogen atom is what we call it as Balmer series. And all the Balmer series lines come under visible region of the electromagnetic spectrum. All Lyman series lines come under ultraviolet region of this of the electromagnetic spectrum, whereas the second series, the Balmer series, okay, all those lines actually they come under so the visible light region of the electromagnetic spectrum. Okay, so then electrons have to make a transition from any other higher energy orbit to the second energy orbit. That was second orbit. So it has to make a transition from either from 3 to 2 or 4 to 2 or 5 to 2, etc., etc. Okay, and just I would like to mention, please remember these Balmer series lines have special nomenclature. For example, 3 to 2, the first member of Balmer series is called H alpha line. So 4 to 2, the second member of Balmer series, it is H beta line. So from 5 to 2, the third member of the Balmer series, okay, H gamma. So from 6 to 2, so the fourth member of the Balmer series, it is called H delta. Balmer series the first member, second member, third member, fourth member ಅಂತಿದೆಯಲ್ಲ ಅವಕ್ಕೆ ಮಾತ್ರ ಸ್ಪೆಷಲ್ ಹೆಸರುಗಳನ್ನ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ದೀವಿ. ಅವೇನಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಮೆಂಬರ್ಗೆ H alpha, ಸೆಕೆಂಡ್ ಮೆಂಬರ್ಗೆ H beta, ಥರ್ಡ್ ಮೆಂಬರ್ಗೆ H gamma, ಫೋರ್ತ್ ಮೆಂಬರ್ಗೆ H delta. ಓಕೆ, ಹೈಯರ್ ಆರ್ಡರ್ ಕೊಡ್ಬೋದು, ಬಟ್ ಈ 4 ಲೈನ್ಸ್ ನಮಗೆ ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟ್. ಹಾಗಾಗಿ H alpha, H beta, H gamma, H delta ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ನಿಮಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತಾಗಬೇಕು. ಅವು ರೆಸ್ಪೆಕ್ಟಿವ್ಲಿ ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಮೆಂಬರ್, ಸೆಕೆಂಡ್ ಮೆಂಬರ್, ಥರ್ಡ್ ಮೆಂಬರ್, ಫೋರ್ತ್ ಮೆಂಬರ್ ಆಫ್ ದ Balmer series ಅಂತ. And just try to remember, just like in the previous case Lyman series, here also we have series limit. Irrespective of any series of hydrogen atom, we have series limit. Series limit is nothing but the transition is a spectral line that actually comes because of the transition of the electron from n is equal to n2 is equal to infinity into the respective case. For example, Lyman series adre n1 is equal to 1 jump ಆಗಬೇಕು. So Balmer series adre n1 is equal to 2 jump ಆಗಬೇಕು and so on. Okay na? So next, similarly if you proceed, so if electron makes transition from 4th orbit to 5th orbit to 6th orbit to 3rd orbit, any other higher energy orbit to the 3rd orbit, so we end up with Paschen series lines. Similarly, if electron makes a transition from 5th orbit to 6th orbit to 7th orbit to 4th orbit, ಯಾವುದೇ other higher energy orbit in the 4th orbit ಗೆ transition ಆಯ್ತು ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ then we get bracket series lines. The 4th series, that is what we call it as bracket series. Similarly, electron can also make a transition from 6th orbit, 7th orbit, 8th orbit, and so on to the 5th orbit. Any other higher energy orbit to the 5th orbit actually gives the wavelengths of the 5th series. That is what we call it as the Fund series. Okay, all these series lines: 3rd series Paschen series, 4th series bracket series, 5th series Fund series. All these 3 series spectral lines of hydrogen atom, they actually come under infrared region of the electromagnetic spectrum. Lyman series lines come under ultraviolet region. So Balmer series lines come under visible, whereas Paschen series, bracket series, and the Fund series, the 3rd series, the 4th series, and the 5th series of hydrogen atom, they actually come under so the infrared region of the electromagnetic spectrum. So far what we discussed little bit about Bohr's theory. We have not discussed completely, whatever it is. As per syllabus, we have discussed some of the aspects of the Bohr's theory. So almost we have come to the end of Bohr's theory. Okay, na? So now, before we end this Bohr's theory, let us list out some of the positive things and some of the negative things of the Bohr's theory. So these positives are called the merits of the Bohr's theory, and the negatives of the Bohr's model, Bohr's theory, Bohr's model, whatever it is, they are called the demerits. Okay, let us discuss merits and demerits of Bohr's model or Bohr's model of an atom one by one. Okay, let us discuss the merits first. The first one is, so the first merit of the Bohr's theory is it explains the stability of atoms. So according to Bohr's theory, atoms are stable. Why atoms are stable? Because according to Bohr, electrons revolve around the nucleus in various circular orbits, and these circular orbits are stationary orbits. And if the electrons are revolving in those stationary orbits, then their total energy is constant. So therefore, they don't lose energy. So therefore, they don't fall into the nucleus. That's why atoms are stable. So this is the one thing, the first merit. The second merit is it explains all the features of hydrogen atom spectrum. That is what we have discussed so far. Okay. So on the basis of Bohr's theory, we derived an expression for the wave number, and we proved that. So we ended up with one formula, Balmer's formula. We ended up with one constant, Rydberg constant, and we also told that the Rydberg constant value calculated Rydberg constant value as per Bohr's theory. So matches very well with the experimental value. So therefore, we also discussed several series associated with hydrogen atom, Lyman series, Balmer series, Paschen series, Brackett series, Punnett series, and so on. And whatever the wavelengths that we calculate for the different members of the different series, their wavelength value agrees very well with the experimental value. So that's why we can say it in a single sentence that the Bohr's theory explains all the features of hydrogen atom spectrum. Okay, so the second success of your Bohr's model is it explains almost every feature that is associated with the hydrogen atom spectrum. That is one thing. Okay, now the third thing, the calculated value of Rydberg constant matches excellently with the experimental value. This is what one of the strongest merit of Bohr's model. Okay, so why your hydrogen atom spectrum can be explained on the basis of your Bohr's model? It is because whatever the value we calculated for Rydberg constant using Bohr's theory, that calculated value upon Bohr's theory, okay, so matches very well with the experimental value. So therefore, this is the third merit of Bohr's model. Okay, and then we have fourth one. So we have not discussed this one. Nimge syllabus alli idilla now discuss ಮಾಡಲಿಲ್ಲ, but just I would like to mention because this is one more success of the Bohr's model. So your Bohr's theory successfully explains not only the hydrogen atom spectrum, it also explains the spectra of hydrogen-like atoms. So, for example, if you go to the example of our hydrogen-like atoms, we have singly ionized helium, doubly ionized lithium, and triply ionized beryllium, and so on. Bekadast example kodabodu. In the case of helium, there are neutral helium, there are 2 electrons, and if you remove 1 electron, so then that helium becomes helium atom becomes helium ion, and that since we are able to remove 1 electron, so therefore the respective thing is what is called as He plus, it becomes a singly ionized helium. In singly ionized helium, since we have removed 1 electron, there is only 1 electron revolving. Okay, similarly, if you go to the case of neutral lithium, in the case of neutral lithium, there are 3 electrons. Out of 3 electrons, if you are able to remove 2 electrons, so lithium becomes doubly ionized, Li plus plus. So since we have removed 2 electrons, there is only 1 electron, and this electron would be revolving around the nucleus, lithium nucleus. So therefore, in the case of He plus and lithium plus plus, there is a single electron revolving around the nucleus, and these nuclei or these ions, they are called hydrogen-like atoms. Why they are called hydrogen-like atoms? It is because in all these cases, there is a single electron revolving around the nucleus, just like your hydrogen atom. So therefore, another success of Bohr's theory is that it not only explains the features of hydrogen atom spectrum, it actually explains the features associated with all hydrogen-like atoms, 1 electron systems like helium plus, lithium plus plus, and so on. We discussed merits. Now we want to discuss the demerits. Demerits are failures or limitations. They are one and the same. Okay. The list of limitations of Bohr's model is more longer, so than your merits. Merits kinta jasti demerits se jasti ide. Anyhow, no problem. So we shall discuss one by one. Okay. The first demerit of Bohr's atom model is this model cannot be applied to many electron systems. Okay. If you go to helium, in the case of helium, there are 2 electrons. If you remove 1 electron, it becomes He plus, and that He plus actually becomes single electron system. And Bohr's theory successfully explains so all the experimental spectral features of He plus, single ionized system. Whereas if you go to neutral helium, even in the case of neutral helium, there are 2 electrons. And so your Bohr's theory cannot be applied to 2 electron system. Not only 2 electron system, it cannot be applied to 3 electron system, 4 electron system, or any number of electron system. So the success of Bohr's model is that it can be applied to single electron system. The failure of Bohr's model that it cannot be explained to atoms in which there are 2 or more than 2 number of electrons. ಯಾವ ಆಟಮ್ಗಳಲ್ಲಿ 2 ಅಥವಾ 2ಕ್ಕಿಂತ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಎಲೆಕ್ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸ್ ಗಳು ಇರುತ್ತೋ ಆ ಸಿಸ್ಟಮ್ ಗಳಿಗೆ ನೀವು ಬೋರ್ಸ್ ಮಾಡಲ್ ಅಪ್ಲೈ ಮಾಡಕ್ಕಾಗಲ್ಲ. ಅಪ್ಲೈ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ಸೊ ಅಬ್ಸರ್ಡ್, ಚಿತ್ರ ವಿಚಿತ್ರವಾದ ರಿಸಲ್ಟ್ ಕೊಡುತ್ತೆ ಅಥವಾ ಏನು ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪ್ಲನೇಷನ್ ಕೊಡಲ್ಲ. ಓಕೆ, ಸೊ ದಟ್ ಇಸ್ ವಾಟ್ ದ ಫಸ್ಟ್ demerit. And the second one is this model does not give any information regarding the intensity of the spectral lines. Okay, so if you see spectrum of any atom, yadaru ondu atom the spectrum tagondu, you just try to remember in the 4th semester, I think you did the diffraction grating experiment. Okay. So therefore, your Bohr's theory does not explain why some spectral lines are so brighter, why some spectral lines are less brighter or weaker. So ಯಾಕೆ ಸ್ಪೆಕ್ಟ್ರಲ್ ಲೈನ್ಸ್ ಕೆಲವೊಂದು ಸ್ಪೆಕ್ಟ್ರಲ್ ಲೈನ್ಸ್ ತುಂಬಾ ಇಂಟೆನ್ಸಿಟಿ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಇರುತ್ತೆ, ಕೆಲವೊಂದಕ್ಕೆ ಕಡಿಮೆ ಇರುತ್ತೆ, ಕೆಲವೊಂದಕ್ಕೆ ವಿಪರೀತ ಕಡಿಮೆ ಇರುತ್ತೆ, ಯಾಕೆ? So there is no explanation by the Bohr's model. Okay na, this is one thing. Directly I want to jump to the fourth one. Third one I will explain ಮಾಡ್ತೀನಿ. This model does not predict the selection rules which apply to transition of an electron from one energy level to another. Okay, so whenever an electron makes a transition from one energy level to another energy level, all transitions are not possible. Only certain transitions are possible. Why these certain transitions are possible? Why certain other transitions are not possible? It is because of a set of selection rules you are going to learn. ಇದ್ರ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ವೆಕ್ಟರ್ ಆಟ ಮಾಡಲ್ ನಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು ಡೀಟೇಲ್ ಆಗಿ ಡಿಸ್ಕಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ. ಸೆಲೆಕ್ಷನ್ ರೂಲ್ಸ್ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಏನು, ಆ ಸೆಲೆಕ್ಷನ್ ರೂಲ್ಸ್ ಅನ್ನ ಹೇಗೆ ಬರ್ಕೋಬೇಕು ಅನ್ನೋದು ವೆಕ್ಟರ್ ಆಟ ಮಾಡಲ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಗೊತ್ತಾಗುತ್ತೆ. ಓಕೆ, ಸೊ ಇದು ಯಾಕೆ ಸೆಲೆಕ್ಷನ್ ರೂಲ್ಸ್ ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ, ಆಟಮ್ಸ್ ಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಕೆಲವೊಂದು ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸಿಷನ್ಸ್ ಅಲೌಡ್ ಇರುತ್ತೆ, ಕೆಲವೊಂದು ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸಿಷನ್ಸ್ ಫರ್ಬಿಡನ್ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಓಕೆ, ಕೆಲವೊಂದು ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸಿಷನ್ಸ್ ಆಗತ್ತೆ, ಕೆಲವೊಂದು ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸಿಷನ್ ಆಗೋದೇ ಇಲ್ಲ. ಯಾಕಾಗತ್ತೆ ಯಾಕಾಗಲ್ಲ ಅನ್ನೋ ಕಂಡೀಷನ್ ಇದೆಯಲ್ಲ, ಅದನ್ನ ಹೇಳೋದು ಸೆಲೆಕ್ಷನ್ ರೂಲ್ಸ್. ಓಕೆ, ಸೊ ಯುವರ್ ಬೋರ್ಸ್ ಥಿಯರಿ ಡಸ್ ನಾಟ್ ಗಿವ್ ಎನಿ ಇನ್ಫಾರ್ಮೇಶನ್ ರಿಗಾರ್ಡಿಂಗ್ ಸೆಲೆಕ್ಷನ್ ರೂಲ್ಸ್. ಯಾಕೆ ಕೆಲವು ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸಾಕ್ಷನ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ, ಕೆಲವು ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸಾಕ್ಷನ್ ಆಗೋದಿಲ್ಲ ಅನ್ನೋದನ್ನ ನಿಮ್ ಬೋರ್ಸ್ ಮಾಡಲು ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪ್ಲೈನ್ ಮಾಡಕ್ ಆಗೋದೇ ಇಲ್ಲ. ಸೊ ದಟ್ಸ್ ವೈ ದೇರ್ ಇಸ್ ನೋ ಇನ್ಫಾರ್ಮೇಶನ್ ರಿಗಾರ್ಡಿಂಗ್ ದಿ ಯುವರ್ ಸೆಲೆಕ್ಷನ್ ರೂಲ್ಸ್. Okay, and the fifth one, there are certain experimental phenomena like Zeeman effect and Stark effect. Stark effect syllabus ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇಲ್ಲ, Zeeman effect syllabus ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇದೆ. ಇದು ಮುಂದೆ ಬರುತ್ತೆ, ವೆಕ್ಟರ್ ಆಟ ಮಾಡಲ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಡಿಸ್ಕಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ. ಇವೆಲ್ಲ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪೆರಿಮೆಂಟಲ್ ಫೆನಾಮಿನಾಗಳು. ಸೊ Zeeman effect ಯಾಕಾಗುತ್ತೆ, Stark effect ಯಾಕಾಗುತ್ತೆ, no explanation by Bohr's theory. Bohr's theory does not give an explanation for the Zeeman effect and Stark effect. Okay, that is another limitation. Okay, now you want to come back to the third one. So if you observe any spectral line of any atom, it appears as a single line. But if that single line is observed through an instrument of high resolution, then that line does not appear to be a single line. It appears to be a close packet of several number of spectral lines. Okay, so this appearance where a single spectral line, when it is viewed through a spectrometer of higher resolution, to be consisting, it appears to be consisting of large number of closely packed lines. This is what we call it as a fine structure. Okay, and your Bohr's theory does not explain why there is a fine structure. Yes. Now we want to discuss about the next model, Sommerfeld's relativistic atom model. So I have told several demerits associated with the Bohr's theory. Okay, just now I told several demerits. Okay, so in order to overcome some of the demerits, another person called Sommerfeld proposed another model, and this model is based on the special theory of relativity. Okay, so he not only used quantum theory, he also made use of special theory of relativity. That's why this model is what we call it as Sommerfeld's relativistic atom model. Okay, why it is called the relativistic atom model, you will come to know a little later. And anyhow, just I would like to say that so this model is not a complete new model. This model is something like an extension of Bohr's model. Okay, the E model, so Sommerfeld's model complete ಆಗಿ ಹೊಸ model ಅಲ್ಲ, Bohr's model to extension. Bohr's model na ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ extend ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ. Okay na, so why this fellow wanted to extend Bohr's model is because he wanted to explain the concept of fine structures. Just now I explained, so appearance of a single spectral line into several number of components under the instrument of high resolution is what we call it as fine structure. Why there is a fine structure? So he wanted to explain, Sommerfeld wanted to explain. That's why so he introduced two modifications to Bohr's model. Bohr's model ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಏನಿತ್ತು ಅದನ್ನೆಲ್ಲ ಹಾಗೆ ಉಳಿಸ್ಕೊಂಡು ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ರಾ ಎರಡು ಮಾಡಿಫಿಕೇಶನ್ಸ್ ನ ಹೇಳ್ತಾನೆ. ಹಾಗಾಗಿ this model is not a completely new model. This is an extension of the Bohr's model. Okay, let us try to understand what are those extension. So the first extension or the first postulate of Sommerfeld model is the path of an electron around the nucleus in general is an ellipse with the nucleus at one of the foci. Okay, according to Bohr's model, so electron can revolve around the nucleus in circular orbits. But according to Sommerfeld's model, he says that circular orbits are also possible. Remember, we are not ruling out he did not rule out circular orbits. Circular orbits ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಇಲ್ವೇ ಇಲ್ಲ ಅಂತ ಅವನು ಹೇಳಲ್ಲ. Circular orbits ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಅದರ ಜೊತೆಗೆ an electron can revolve around the nucleus in an elliptical orbit also. Okay. So therefore he introduced the concept of elliptical orbits. Bohr's model ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಬರೀ circular orbits ಇತ್ತು. ಸೊ ಸಮ್ಮರ್ಫೆಲ್ಡ್ ಮಾಡೆಲ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಆ ಸರ್ಕ್ಯುಲರ್ ಆರ್ಬಿಟ್ಸ್ ನು ಉಳಿಸ್ಕೊಂಡು ಅದ್ರ ಜೊತೆಗೆ ಎಲೆಕ್ಟ್ರಾನ್ ನ್ಯೂಕ್ಲಿಯಸ್ ಸುತ್ತ ಸೊ ಎಲಿಪ್ಟಿಕಲ್ ಆರ್ಬಿಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲೂ ಕೂಡ ಸುತ್ತ ಹಾಕಬಹುದು, ರೌಂಡ್ ಹೊಡಿಬಹುದು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ. Okay, so that's why he introduced elliptical orbits, and whenever an electron is revolving around the nucleus in an elliptical orbit, the position of the nucleus is not the center, it is actually at one of the foci. There are two special points, we call them as focal points, okay, or they are called the foci. The position of the the position of the nucleus is at one of the foci. Actually this model resembles your planetary system model, solar system model. It is because as per Kepler's law, all planets revolve around the sun in an elliptical orbit with the sun at one of the center. So he used the same, and he says an electron can revolve around the nucleus in an elliptical orbit with the nucleus at one of the foci. Okay, so please remember, I repeat, so this doesn't mean that circular orbits are not there. Circular orbits are also there apart from elliptical orbits. Okay na? So ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಅರ್ಥ ಏನಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಸರ್ಕ್ಯುಲರ್ ಆರ್ಬಿಟ್ಸ್ ಇಲ್ವೇ ಇಲ್ಲ ಅಂತ ಏನು ವಾದ ಮಾಡಲ್ಲ. ಸರ್ಕ್ಯುಲರ್ ಆರ್ಬಿಟ್ಸ್ ಜೊತೆಗೆ ಎಲಿಪ್ಟಿಕಲ್ ಆರ್ಬಿಟ್ಸ್ ಕೂಡ ಇದೆ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ. ಹಾಗಾಗಿ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಸರ್ಕ್ಯುಲರ್ ಆರ್ಬಿಟ್ಸ್ ಪ್ಲಸ್ ಎಲಿಪ್ಟಿಕಲ್ ಆರ್ಬಿಟ್ಸ್ ಎರಡೂ ಸಾಧ್ಯ ಇದೆ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಸಮ್ಮರ್ಫೈಡ್ ಮಾಡಿದೆ. Okay, this is what the first postulate. We shall discuss about this little later. Next session ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಕಂಪ್ಲೀಟ್ ಆಗಿ ಡಿಸ್ಕಸ್ ಮಾಡೋಣ. The second postulate is the velocity of the electron moving in an elliptical orbit varies considerably at the different parts of the elliptical orbit. So this causes relativistic variation in the mass of the electron. Okay, according to this, if an electron is revolving around in an elliptical orbit, the velocity of the electron is not a constant. If an electron is revolving in a circular orbit, the velocity of the electron remains constant. But if an electron is revolving around the nucleus in an elliptical orbit, velocity is not constant. Velocity of the electron would be maximum when it is close to the nucleus. Velocity of the electron would be small when it is far away from the nucleus. Nucleus ಹತ್ತಿರದಲ್ಲಿ ಇದ್ದಾಗ ಎಲೆಕ್ಟ್ರಾನ್ ಸ್ಪೀಡ್ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಇರುತ್ತೆ ಎಲಿಪ್ಟಿಕಲ್ ಆರ್ಬಿಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ, ಮತ್ತೆ ನ್ಯೂಕ್ಲಿಯಸ್ ಇಂದ ತುಂಬಾ ದೂರದಲ್ಲಿ ಇದ್ದಾಗ ಎಲೆಕ್ಟ್ರಾನ್ ಸ್ಪೀಡ್ ಕಡಿಮೆ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಹಾಗಾಗಿ ಎಲಿಪ್ಟಿಕಲ್ ಆರ್ಬಿಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಸರ್ಕ್ಯುಲರ್ ಆರ್ಬಿಟ್ಸ್ ತರ ವೆಲಾಸಿಟಿ ಸೇಮ್ ಇರಲ್ಲ, ಚೇಂಜ್ ಆಗ್ತಾನೆ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ಸ್ಪೆಷಲ್ ಥಿಯರಿ ಆಫ್ ರಿಲೇಟಿವಿಟಿ ಪ್ರಕಾರ ಯಾವಾಗ ವೆಲಾಸಿಟಿ ಚೇಂಜ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೋ mass kuda change agutte. So therefore this causes variation in the mass of the electron. So therefore according to second postulate of Sommerfeld, an electron revolving around the nucleus in an elliptical orbit, okay, its velocity changes. Because of the change in velocity there is a change in the mass of the electron also. Therefore this fellow Sommerfeld included this variation of mass of the electron due to the variation of the velocity of the electron, because the electron is revolving around in an elliptical orbit.